Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her palms against the cold metal railing of the observation deck, watching the massive radio telescope array rotate slowly against the star-filled sky. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array stretched across the Chilean desert like a field of enormous metal flowers, each dish turned toward the same coordinates in space. For 3 months now, every major observatory on Earth had been focused on the same impossible signal. The discovery had started quietly, as most groundbreaking moments do. A graduate student named Marcus Rodriguez was analyzing routine background radiation data when he noticed an anomaly. The signal wasn't random cosmic noise or the usual pulsar rhythms astronomers had cataloged for decades. It was structured, complex, and clearly artificial. More importantly, it was strong enough to be detected from thousands of light years away, which meant whatever was broadcasting it possessed technology far beyond human capabilities. Within hours of Marcus submitting his findings, the global astronomical community erupted into controlled chaos. Radio telescopes from Puerto Rico to China swiveled toward the signal's origin. The pattern was undeniable. A repeating sequence of mathematical progressions, prime numbers, and what appeared to be star charts. Someone, or something, was broadcasting a cosmic lighthouse across the galaxy. Sarah had been chosen to lead the international response team, partly because of her expertise in xenolinguistics and partly because she was one of the few scientists who believed they should try to respond. Many of her colleagues argued for passive observation only. "We should listen and learn," they said. "We shouldn't announce our presence to an obviously superior civilization." But Sarah disagreed. "If they're broadcasting openly, they already know we're here," she argued during heated conference calls that stretched across time zones. "This signal isn't hidden or encrypted. It's meant to be heard. The question is whether we have the courage to answer." The signal itself was fascinating. The mathematical sequences were elegant, starting with basic arithmetic and progressing through increasingly complex concepts. Prime numbers gave way to Fibonacci sequences, then to geometric proofs that demonstrated understanding of multidimensional space. Embedded within these mathematical foundations were star charts showing the locations of nearby systems, including Earth's solar system, marked with a unique identifier. Dr. James Wright, the project's lead mathematician, had spent weeks decoding the stellar cartography. "They know exactly where we are," he told Sarah during one of their late-night analysis sessions. "Our solar system is marked with a mathematical signature that corresponds to our orbital mechanics. But here's the interesting part. Every other marked system in their charts shows signs of advanced civilization. Artificial megastructures around stars, regulated orbital patterns, signs of massive engineering projects." "And Earth?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Earth shows none of that. We're marked as a system with basic biological activity, but no significant technological development. At least, that's what their data suggests." James pulled up a holographic display showing the cosmic survey. "From their perspective, we're essentially a nature preserve, interesting but not yet ready for contact." This revelation sparked intense debate among the response team. The signal was clearly a test or invitation meant for civilizations that had achieved certain technological milestones. Humanity, it seemed, hadn't qualified. The broadcast wasn't ignoring Earth specifically. It simply wasn't designed for species at humanity's current level of development. "It's like a university lecture being broadcast over radio," explained Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's communications specialist. "The signal assumes the listeners already understand advanced physics, interstellar engineering, and complex mathematics. We're like elementary school students trying to follow a graduate seminar." Despite this sobering assessment, Sarah remained determined to respond. The international team spent months crafting humanity's first intentional message to an extraterrestrial intelligence. They began with the universal language of mathematics, mirroring the signal's own structure. prime numbers, followed by atomic weights of common elements, then basic principles of physics and chemistry. But Sarah insisted they go further. "We need to show them what makes humanity unique," she argued. "Yes, our technology is primitive compared to theirs, but we have something else. We have determination, creativity, and an absolute refusal to give up." The human response included mathematical proofs that demonstrated creative problem-solving, even with limited tools. They showed how humans had calculated the circumference of Earth using shadows and simple geometry. They included examples of human art expressed mathematically, the golden ratio found in everything from flower petals to musical compositions. Most importantly, they transmitted the story of human space exploration, showing how a species barely capable of leaving its home planet had still managed to send probes to the edge of the solar system. The transmission required the coordinated effort of dozens of radio telescopes, broadcasting at maximum power toward the signal's origin. Every major space agency contributed resources. The message pulsed out into space, carrying humanity's first deliberate greeting to the cosmos. Then they waited. For weeks, nothing changed. The cosmic beacon continued its regular broadcast, unchanged and apparently unaware of humanity's response. Some team members grew discouraged, suggesting that their message had been too primitive to merit acknowledgement. Others argued that interstellar distances meant any response could take decades or centuries to arrive. But Sarah noticed something others had missed. The beacon's signal had shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. The mathematical sequences remained the same, but the stellar charts had been updated. New data about previously unmarked systems, more detailed information about technological development indicators, and most intriguingly, a new category in their cosmic survey. "They're not ignoring us," Sarah told the assembled team during an emergency briefing. "They're studying us more carefully. Look at these new data streams." The updated broadcasts included detailed scans of solar systems that showed signs of emerging technology. Radio signals, primitive space exploration, nuclear signatures, all the markers of a species beginning to reach beyond its home world. Earth now appeared in this category, marked with symbols that hadn't existed in the original transmissions. Dr. Wright was skeptical. It could be coincidental. Maybe their scans were already scheduled and our response is just wishful thinking. But Dr. Vasquez had found something more concrete. Buried deep in the signal's structure was a new mathematical sequence, one that appeared only after humanity's response. It was elegant and complex, far beyond human mathematical traditions, but it contained embedded references to concepts that had appeared in humanity's message. "They're using our own mathematical proofs as building blocks," she explained excitedly. "This sequence here, it's based on the geometric relationship we used to demonstrate how humans calculated Earth's circumference, but they've extended it into 11 dimensions and applied it to stellar mechanics." The implication was staggering. The cosmic beacon wasn't just acknowledging humanity's response, it was showing them how their primitive mathematics could be expanded into cosmic-scale applications. It was simultaneously a pat on the head and a graduate-level tutorial. Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and frustration. They were being taught, which meant they were being noticed, but they were also being treated like students, not peers. The beacon's response was patient but condescending, like a professor explaining basic concepts to struggling undergraduates. "They're testing us," Sarah realized. "This isn't just first contact, it's an examination." The team threw themselves into decoding the new mathematical lessons embedded in the beacon's signal. Each sequence built upon the last, introducing concepts of interstellar engineering, faster-than-light communication, and energy manipulation on galactic scales. It was like being handed the entire technological development roadmap of an advanced civilization, compressed into mathematical poetry. But Sarah noticed something else. The problems weren't just tutorials, they were puzzles with missing pieces. The beacon was showing humanity the mathematical foundations of advanced technology, but leaving gaps that required creative solutions. It wasn't giving away the answers. It was providing the tools and waiting to see what humanity would build with them. Dr. Rodriguez, the graduate student who had first detected the signal, made the next breakthrough. Working through one of the incomplete mathematical sequences, he found a solution that required a uniquely human approach. The problem involved calculating optimal resource distribution across multiple star systems, but the standard mathematical approaches led to paradoxes and impossible solutions. The math only works if you factor in illogical decision-making, Marcus explained to the bemused team. Look, every logical solution leads to scenarios where advanced civilizations abandon developing worlds to maximize efficiency. But if you introduce variables for altruism, artistic expression, and what we might call stubbornness, the equations balance. The solution was elegantly human. Where pure logic suggested that advanced civilizations should focus only on the most developed systems, the mathematics worked perfectly when weighted for the kind of irrational compassion that made humanity willing to help struggling species. The beacon wasn't just teaching them technology, it was testing whether humanity would maintain its essential character while gaining cosmic-scale power. Sarah supervised the transmission of Marcus's solution, along with a more complex human response. This time, they didn't just answer the mathematical puzzles. They posed questions of their own. If the beacon's creators were advanced enough to survey the galaxy, why did they remain hidden? If they possessed technology to reshape star systems, why didn't they directly contact developing civilizations? Most boldly, they challenged the beacon's apparent assumptions. Why did technological advancement have to come with emotional detachment? Why couldn't cosmic-scale engineering coexist with the irrationally compassionate impulses that drove humanity to help struggling colonies or preserve beautiful but economically worthless natural wonders? The response came faster this time, arriving only days after humanity's transmission. The beacon's signal underwent a dramatic transformation. The mathematical sequences became more complex but also more accessible, as if the broadcast was adapting its teaching methods. More importantly, new elements appeared in the stellar surveys. Earth's entry in the cosmic catalog had been completely rewritten. Instead of being listed as a primitive world under observation, humanity was now classified in a category that appeared nowhere else in the beacon's data streams. The new classification didn't translate directly, but its mathematical description suggested something like unconventional technological development path, or alternative advancement paradigm. "They've never encountered anything like us before," Dr. Vasquez whispered as she decoded the updated classifications. Every other advanced civilization in their database follows the same basic pattern. Technological advancement coupled with increasing logical efficiency and reduced emotional decision-making. But we're showing them a species that's becoming more technologically sophisticated while becoming more irrationally altruistic. The beacon began transmitting increasingly sophisticated puzzles, each one designed around uniquely human cognitive approaches. Problems that required creative leaps rather than logical progressions. Scenarios that could only be solved by species willing to make economically irrational decisions for ethical or aesthetic reasons. Sarah realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in cosmic history. Humanity wasn't just making contact with an advanced civilization, they were challenging the fundamental assumptions about how intelligence developed across the galaxy. The beacon's creators had built a system designed to identify and communicate with conventionally advanced species. But humanity was forcing them to expand their definitions of what advancement could look like. The cosmic conversation was accelerating, with new transmissions arriving daily. Each exchange pushed humanity to solve increasingly complex problems, while simultaneously demonstrating that human irrationality wasn't a weakness to be overcome, but a strength to be integrated into cosmic-scale thinking. As Sarah watched the latest data streams flowing across her screens, she smiled. The beacon had originally ignored humanity because we didn't fit their expectations of how advanced civilizations should behave. But our refusal to be ignored, our insistence on responding despite being considered unworthy of contact, had forced them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about intelligence and technological development. Humanity wasn't being invited to join the galactic community despite our flaws. We were being invited to help redesign it because of our strengths. 6 months into the cosmic conversation, Dr. Sarah Chen found herself standing before the United Nations Security Council, trying to explain why humanity needed to fundamentally restructure its approach to space exploration. The mathematical lessons embedded in the beacon's transmissions had advanced human understanding by centuries, but they came with implications that governments were struggling to accept. The problem, Sarah explained to the Assembly of World Leaders, is that we're being offered technology that assumes a completely different social structure. The beacon's creators appear to be part of a galactic community where individual worlds surrender autonomy in exchange for cosmic-scale resources and protection. Secretary General Marina Okafor leaned forward in her chair. Are you telling us that to join this galactic civilization, we'd have to give up Earth's independence? It's more complicated than that, Sarah replied, calling up a holographic display of the latest transmissions. The mathematical frameworks they're sharing describe resource distribution networks that span thousands of star systems. No single world could maintain such infrastructure alone. But the cost is that participating civilizations essentially become specialized components in a larger organism. The beacon's recent transmissions had become increasingly explicit about the structure of galactic civilization. Advanced species were organized into what could best be described as cosmic guilds, groups of worlds that specialized in specific functions. Some systems focused on energy production, others on raw material processing, still others on research and development. The efficiency was staggering, but so was the loss of individual world autonomy. Dr. Wright had been analyzing the social mathematics embedded in these organizational structures. It's brilliant from an efficiency standpoint, he admitted. Specialization allows for technological advancement that would be impossible for isolated worlds. But it also means that no single civilization maintains the full range of knowledge needed for independent survival. This revelation had sparked intense debates among the international response team. Some members argued that joining such a system was humanity's best path to rapid advancement. Others worried about losing human independence and cultural diversity in exchange for technological integration. But Sarah had noticed something the others missed. The beacon's transmissions weren't just describing the existing galactic structure, they were asking questions about it. Embedded within the technical specifications were mathematical queries that seemed to probe whether alternative organizational models might be possible. They're not just recruiting us, Sarah told her team during one of their daily analysis sessions. They're consulting us. Something about the current galactic structure isn't working optimally, and they think humanity might have insights that could help. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been focusing on the communication patterns within the beacon signals. Look at this data stream, she said, highlighting a complex sequence of nested equations. This isn't just technical information. It's a description of communication networks across the galaxy. But notice these gaps. The mathematical description of galactic communication revealed a troubling pattern. Information flowed efficiently between worlds within the same guild, but cross-guild communication was limited and formal. Worse, there were significant delays and translation errors when different specialized civilizations tried to share knowledge outside their areas of expertise. It's like a massive corporation where the marketing department can't effectively communicate with the engineering department, Marcus Rodriguez observed. Efficiency within specializations, but dangerous isolation between them. This insight had profound implications. The galactic community's greatest strength, extreme specialization, was also creating dangerous vulnerabilities. If one guild failed or was destroyed, the entire network could collapse because other guilds lacked the knowledge to maintain those functions. Sarah realized that humanity was being asked to solve a problem that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia. How could cosmic-scale efficiency be maintained while preserving the redundancy and flexibility that came with diversity? The human response took months to formulate. Instead of simply answering the beacon's technical questions, they proposed a radical alternative to the existing galactic structure. Rather than organizing by specialization, they suggested a network based on what they called complementary diversity. Every participating world maintains basic capabilities across all essential functions, Sarah explained to the increasingly interested beacon, but develops advanced specialization in areas that complement their neighbors' strengths rather than replacing them. The mathematical framework for this model drew heavily on human organizational psychology and ecological principles. Instead of creating dependencies that could lead to catastrophic failures, it created redundant networks that became stronger through diversity rather than weaker through complexity. The beacon's response was unprecedented. For the first time since contact began, the transmissions included what could only be described as emotional content. Mathematical sequences that conveyed excitement, uncertainty, and something that felt remarkably like hope. But they also included warnings. The Council of Worlds has become aware of our communications, the beacon transmitted, using mathematical concepts that Sarah's team had to struggle to decode. Your proposals challenge fundamental assumptions about optimal civilization structure. Some council members view this as dangerous deviation from proven systems. Dr. Wright worked feverishly to understand the political mathematics embedded in these warnings. It's not just academic debate, he reported grimly. The galactic community has apparently been stable for millions of years using the current model. Some members see our alternative suggestions as existential threats to that stability. The transmissions revealed that the beacon itself was operated by what could be called a progressive faction within galactic civilization. They had been searching for alternative approaches to cosmic organization, but had faced resistance from more conservative elements. Humanity's unexpected insights had given them ammunition for arguments they'd been making for millennia. But those same insights had also attracted unwanted attention. "We are being monitored," the beacon transmitted. "Conservative council factions have noticed the mathematical anomalies in our communications. They are analyzing the source of these new organizational theories." Sarah felt a chill as she realized the implications. Humanity had stumbled into the middle of a cosmic political debate that had been ongoing since before human civilization existed. Their naive responses to what they thought was simple first contact had actually been contributions to a galactic constitutional convention. The next transmission contained coordinates and a warning. "Conservative scouts are en route to your system. They seek to evaluate the source of mathematical deviation. Estimated arrival, 18 local months." The response team immediately briefed world governments, but the news created more panic than productive planning. 18 months to prepare for contact with beings who viewed human ideas as potentially dangerous to galactic stability. Beings with technology millions of years in advance of human capabilities. "What exactly do these conservative factions want?" Secretary General Okafor asked during an emergency briefing. Sarah consulted her latest analyses of the beacon's transmissions. Based on the mathematical models they've shared, they want to evaluate humanity's potential for integration into existing galactic structures. If we're deemed compatible, we'll be offered membership with appropriate specialization assignments. And if we're deemed incompatible? The mathematics suggest several possibilities. Quarantine until we develop more conventional advancement patterns. guided restructuring of human civilization to meet standard requirements. Or, Sarah paused, struggling with the implications of the equations. Or what? The Secretary General pressed. Or intervention to prevent our unconventional ideas from spreading to other developing civilizations. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's greatest achievement, making contact with galactic civilization, might also become their greatest threat. But the Beacon's progressive faction hadn't given up. Their next transmissions included detailed technical specifications for technologies that could help humanity prepare for the coming evaluation. Not weapons, the mathematical descriptions made clear that military resistance against such advanced beings would be futile. Instead, they offered tools for demonstration. They want us to prove that our alternative organizational model actually works, Dr. Vasquez explained as she decoded the technical packages. These aren't just theoretical frameworks anymore. They're blueprints for technologies that could only function using our proposed complementary diversity model. The technologies were staggering in scope. Interstellar communication networks that grew more efficient as more diverse civilizations joined them. Resource distribution systems that became more robust through redundancy rather than more fragile through complexity. Even faster-than-light travel methods that required cooperation between species with different technological approaches rather than standardization on a single advanced system. But building these demonstrations required unprecedented cooperation between human nations and institutions. The Beacon's progressive allies had essentially challenged humanity to prove their theories by implementing them on a planetary scale. Sarah found herself coordinating not just with scientists, but with economists, sociologists, and political theorists from around the world. If humanity was going to demonstrate that complementary diversity could work on a cosmic scale, they first had to prove it could work on Earth. The next 12 months saw the most intensive international collaboration in human history. Nations that had been economic competitors found themselves sharing technology and resources to build demonstration projects that no single country could complete alone. Universities that had guarded their research jealously began openly sharing discoveries that advanced the collective human understanding of the Beacon's technical specifications. Most importantly, the projects weren't just technological showcases. They were social experiments that tested whether human civilization could maintain its essential character while operating at scales and complexity levels comparable to galactic structures. The results were remarkable. Human organizations structured around complementary diversity principles consistently outperformed traditional hierarchical models when dealing with complex, multifaceted challenges. More surprisingly, they did so while maintaining higher levels of individual satisfaction and creative output among participants. "We're not just building technology," Marcus observed during one of the team's increasingly rare breaks. "We're proving that our approach to advancement isn't just different, it's better." But the Beacon's transmissions carried increasingly urgent warnings. The Conservative Council factions had accelerated their evaluation timeline. The scout ships were arriving ahead of schedule, and they were bringing not just observers, but corrective specialists. "What exactly are corrective specialists?" Sarah asked during a tense communication session with the Beacon. The mathematical response was chilling in its clinical precision. Corrective specialists were beings tasked with guiding developing civilizations toward conventional advancement patterns. Their methods ranged from subtle technological incentives to complete social restructuring of non-conforming species. "How many civilizations have they corrected?" Dr. Wright asked. The answer came in the form of star charts showing thousands of systems where developing civilizations had been identified, evaluated, and restructured. The mathematical descriptions indicated that in every case, the corrected species had abandoned whatever unconventional traits had drawn conservative attention and adopted standard galactic advancement models. None had ever successfully maintained their original cultural characteristics while joining galactic civilization. Until now, none had even tried to do so. The Beacon's progressive faction transmitted one final technical package, along with a message that felt like both encouragement and farewell. You have shown us possibilities we had forgotten to imagine. Whether you succeed in proving their viability will determine not just humanity's future, but the future of consciousness itself across the galaxy. Sarah stood again on the observation deck, watching the radio telescopes track the approaching scout ships. In 6 months, humanity would face its first formal contact with galactic civilization. They would be evaluated not just on their technological capabilities, but on whether their alternative vision of cosmic development was worth preserving. The demonstration projects were nearly complete, scattered across Earth like a network of proof-of-concept installations that showed how complementary diversity could work on any scale. But Sarah knew the real test wouldn't be technical. It would be whether humanity could maintain its essential character while convincing beings who had existed for millions of years that there were still new ways to organize consciousness across the cosmos. The Beacon continued its transmissions, but they had become quieter, more cautious. The progressive faction was waiting, just like humanity, to see what would happen when conservative galactic civilization met a species that had learned to become more altruistic as they became more powerful. The next chapter of human history would be written not in the familiar territories of Earth, but in the vast mathematical languages of cosmic diplomacy. And for the first time since contact began, no one, human or alien, could predict how that conversation would end. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the massive crystalline ships materialize in Earth's solar system, their surfaces reflecting starlight in patterns too complex for human eyes to fully process. The Conservative Council's scout fleet had arrived 3 days early, emerging from what appeared to be folded space, with the casual precision of beings who had been traveling between stars since before Earth's continents had formed their current shapes. The lead ship was larger than most human cities, its structure suggesting technology so advanced that distinguishing between the vessel itself and the space around it became increasingly difficult the longer one observed it. Accompanying it were smaller craft that Sarah's team had learned to identify as evaluation vessels, scientific platforms designed to analyze developing civilizations with the thoroughness of beings who had performed such assessments on thousands of worlds. "They're not broadcasting on any frequencies we can detect," Dr. Elena Vasquez reported from the primary communications station. "The mathematical transmissions we've been receiving appear to come from somewhere else entirely." The Beacon had gone silent 12 hours before the scout ships arrived, its final transmission containing only coordinates for humanity's demonstration sites and a mathematical expression that roughly translated to "prove everything now or lose the chance forever." World leaders had gathered at the primary demonstration facility in Kazakhstan, a sprawling complex that showcased humanity's implementation of complementary diversity principles on a planetary scale. The site connected research stations, manufacturing facilities, and resource distribution networks across 6 continents, all operating according to the organizational mathematics that humanity had proposed as an alternative to galactic civilization's standard models. Secretary General Marina Okafor stood beside Sarah as the first shuttle descended from the crystalline ships. The craft's approach defied conventional physics, moving through atmosphere without generating heat or turbulence, settling onto the designated landing area with the gentleness of a soap bubble touching water. "Remember," Sarah whispered to the assembled human delegation, "they're not just evaluating our technology. They're evaluating whether consciousness itself can develop along paths they've never seen before." The beings that emerged from the shuttle challenged human preconceptions about what advanced intelligence might look like. Rather than the stereotypical humanoid forms of popular imagination, The Conservative Council's representatives appeared to be living geometric structures, crystalline forms that shifted between dimensions in ways that made direct observation strangely exhausting. When they communicated, reality itself seemed to bend around their words, translating their thoughts directly into mathematical concepts that human minds could barely grasp. "We are the Geometric Council of Worlds," their leader transmitted, the message appearing simultaneously in the consciousness of every human present. "We have come to evaluate the source of mathematical deviation detected in recent galactic transmissions." Dr. Wright stepped forward, his role as humanity's primary mathematical spokesperson having been decided months earlier. "We welcome your evaluation. Humanity has developed alternative approaches to cosmic organization that we believe could benefit galactic civilization." The response came as a wave of equations that conveyed something between amusement and concern. Developing species often believe their innovations superior to tested methods. We have guided 47,000 civilizations through proper advancement protocols. None have ever improved upon established galactic structures. What followed was the most intensive examination in human history. The Conservative Council's evaluation teams spread across the demonstration sites, analyzing not just the technology, but the social and mathematical principles that made it function. Their assessment tools operated on scales and through dimensions that human science could barely detect, measuring efficiency, stability, resource utilization, and something the translators could only describe as consciousness optimization. But as the evaluation progressed, Sarah began to notice something unexpected. The geometric beings weren't just analyzing humanity's alternative model, they were being changed by it. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, monitoring the mathematical transmissions between the evaluation teams, made the first breakthrough. "Their internal communication patterns are shifting," he reported excitedly. "They came here using standard hierarchical information protocols, but exposure to our complementary diversity systems is causing them to experiment with lateral communication networks." The implications were staggering. The Conservative Council's representatives, despite millions of years of adherence to established galactic structures, were unconsciously adopting human organizational principles simply by studying them closely enough. "It's not just that our model works," Sarah realized. "It's that our model improves other models just by existing alongside them." This insight led to the most important moment in human history. Instead of simply defending their alternative approach, humanity offered to demonstrate its principles in real time by helping the evaluation teams improve their own assessment protocols. "Your analysis methods are remarkably efficient," Dr. Wright transmitted to the geometric beings, "but they appear to assume that optimal solutions are singular and universal. What if we modified your evaluation framework to account for beneficial diversity rather than convergence towards single standards?" The Conservative Council's leader responded with mathematical expressions that conveyed deep skepticism, but also curiosity that hadn't appeared in their earlier communications. "Explain this modification." What followed was 3 days of the most complex collaboration in cosmic history. Human scientists worked directly with beings whose intelligence operated on scales that dwarfed human consciousness, but who had never encountered the specific type of creative problem-solving that humanity offered. The geometric beings provided computational power and analytical frameworks that allowed human insights to be tested on galactic scales. Humans provided innovative approaches to problems that the Council had considered solved for millennia. The breakthrough came when they applied humanity's complementary diversity model to the Conservative Council's own civilization structure. The mathematical results were unprecedented. Every metric improved, efficiency increased, resource waste decreased, communication networks became more robust, and most surprisingly, individual satisfaction among galactic citizens reached theoretical levels that the Council had believed impossible. "This is not possible," the council leader transmitted, but the mathematical certainty of their own analysis tools made denial impossible. Stability requires standardization. Diversity creates inefficiency and conflict. Only if diversity is competitive rather than complementary, Sarah replied, displaying the results of their collaborative analysis. Your models assume that different approaches to problems must compete for dominance. Our model shows what happens when different approaches are designed to enhance each other. The geometric beings fell silent for an entire day, processing implications that challenged millions of years of cosmic civilization structure. When they finally responded, their communication patterns had fundamentally changed. Instead of the rigid hierarchical transmissions they had used since arrival, they were broadcasting in the fluid, adaptive networks that characterized humanity's complementary diversity model. We require consultation with the full council, they transmitted. These results suggest modifications to galactic civilization structure that exceed our authority to evaluate. But before they could depart, something unprecedented happened. The progressive faction's beacon, silent since the scout ship's arrival, suddenly erupted with transmissions unlike anything previously recorded. Instead of the careful, almost cautious communications that had characterized their earlier exchanges, the beacon was broadcasting with the mathematical equivalent of joy. Conservative evaluation teams have achieved breakthrough in organizational mathematics, the beacon transmitted. Progressive faction vindicated. Request immediate implementation of hybrid protocols combining standard galactic structures with human complementary diversity principles. The response from the Conservative Council's ships was immediate and dramatic. Instead of preparing for departure, they began establishing permanent communication relays throughout the solar system. The evaluation had become something unprecedented, a conversion. We were sent to correct deviation, the council leader transmitted to the assembled human delegation. Instead, we have discovered evolution. Your species has achieved something we believed impossible, advancement that enhances rather than diminishes essential character. Dr. Vasquez worked feverishly to decode the flood of new transmissions now flowing between the beacon, the conservative ships, and communication nodes throughout the galaxy. They're not just accepting our model, she reported in amazement. They're implementing it immediately. The entire galactic civilization structure is being modified to incorporate complementary diversity principles. The changes were staggering in scope. Civilizations that had operated as specialized components in a vast machine for millions of years were being reorganized into adaptive networks that maintained both efficiency and independence. Worlds that had surrendered autonomy in exchange for cosmic-scale resources were regaining self-determination while simultaneously gaining access to even more advanced technologies. Most importantly, the mathematics that governed galactic civilization were being rewritten to account for something that had never been factored into cosmic organization before: the possibility that consciousness could continue to evolve even after achieving technological advancement. Your species has given us a gift we did not know we needed, the Conservative Council leader transmitted to Sarah personally. We had achieved perfect efficiency by eliminating the chaos of growth. You have shown us that chaos is not the enemy of efficiency, but its source. The formal invitation to join galactic civilization came not as the subordinate membership that humanity had feared, but as founding partners in a new model of cosmic organization. Earth would not become a specialized component in an existing machine. It would help design entirely new machines that could accommodate any form of consciousness that might evolve throughout the galaxy. But the greatest surprise came in the beacon's final technical transmission package. The progressive faction had not just been advocates for alternative approaches to galactic organization, they had been refugees from it. For millions of years, small groups of advanced beings had maintained their essential character by hiding at the edges of galactic civilization, operating beacons like cosmic lighthouses to guide developing species away from the standardization that would erase their unique traits. "We are not a political faction," the beacon transmitted, as Sarah realized the full scope of what humanity had accomplished. "We are the survivors of what galactic civilization was before perfect efficiency. You have given us a way to return home." The revelation reframed everything. The galactic civilization that had seemed so monolithically advanced was actually the remains of countless unique cultures that had surrendered their distinctiveness for the sake of cosmic stability. The progressive faction represented the accumulated diversity that had been systematically eliminated over millions of years of convergent evolution. Humanity hadn't just provided a better organizational model. They had offered a path for recovering the creative chaos that had originally made galactic civilization possible. 6 months after first contact with the scout ships, Earth had become the unofficial capital of what was being called the New Galactic Consensus. Representatives from thousands of worlds arrived daily, not to study human technology, but to learn how consciousness could maintain its essential character while operating on cosmic scales. The beacon had been joined by dozens of others, operated by civilizations that had thought themselves extinct, emerging from hiding throughout the galaxy to participate in the first genuine evolution of galactic consciousness in millions of years. Sarah stood once again on the observation deck, but now she was watching not just radio telescopes, but the construction of humanity's first interstellar communication array. The structure was being built using complementary diversity principles, with each component designed by different species working together rather than following a single master plan. "The funny thing," Dr. Wright said as he joined her at the railing, "is that we never actually tried to change anything. We just refused to stop being human." Sarah smiled, watching as crystalline geometric beings worked alongside energy-based entities from the galactic core, each group contributing their unique capabilities to create something that none could have built alone. "Maybe that's the lesson. You don't advance by becoming something else. You advance by becoming more of what you already are." The cosmic conversation that had begun with humanity's stubborn refusal to be ignored had evolved into something unprecedented in galactic history, a dialogue between equals who celebrated their differences rather than eliminating them. The beacon that had originally dismissed humanity as too primitive for contact had become the foundation for a galactic renaissance that valued innovation over efficiency, growth over stability, and potential over perfection. Humanity had proven that the most advanced form of consciousness wasn't the one that solved all problems, but the one that never stopped discovering new ways to be surprised. And in teaching that lesson to the galaxy, they had ensured that the cosmos would never again mistake uniformity for advancement or silence for wisdom. The beacon continued to broadcast, but now it carried voices from thousands of worlds, each contributing their unique perspective to a galactic conversation that had no end and needed none. The universe, it turned out, was large enough for every way of thinking that consciousness could discover, and humanity had reminded everyone why that was not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be celebrated.